Welcome back, Wonders. It's Naidra. In today's video, I'm going to show you guys the most up-to-date crushing hands build that I have that I've been having a lot of fun with, and specifically I've been using it for speed farming. It is putting out billions and trillions of damage as well. The nice thing about this build is it can handle doing pit as well, but again, the main purpose of this for me is just for speed farming. It is really quick and it's a lot of fun to play. So with that being said, as usual, we're going to jump into the pit and I'm going to show you guys how this build works. And then once we go through that, I'm going to show you guys the skill tree, Paragon board, and everything else as well. So let's go ahead and dive right into it. Alrighty, so as usual, we do have our Vortex on our skill bar. We've got our Armored Hide. We have our Ravager, Scourge, and the Hunter. And of course, because this is a Crushing Hands build, we obviously will have Crushing Hands on here as well. So what we're going to want to do is activate our defensives, jump in using the Hunter, and then pull our enemies in using Vortex. Because this build does also use Mystic Circle, that means we want to have our enemies as close as possible at all times. So grouping them together and pulling them together is going to be helpful in making sure that you're optimizing this build and also running with it as quickly as possible. Also, Crushing Hands, similar to some of the other Spiritborn builds, when you click on an enemy, dashes you closer to that enemy, so it makes for good speed farming with this as well. So that being said, let's go ahead and test it out. We'll go ahead and fire up our defensives. Use the Hunter and Vortex our enemies in. Boom. And then we'll move on to the next group. Same idea here. Go ahead and pull these guys together. Hunter. And then boom. And we'll go ahead and keep moving here. This does do pretty decent against single enemies as well, but grouping them is what's going to make this the fastest and the easiest. And eliminates our enemies pretty quickly here. Got one more before we go back to town here. Boom. Alrighty, so let's go back and take a look and see what we've got going on here and what's making this build possible. Perfect. So starting off with our equipment, no surprise here, we are going to be using the Rod of Kapaliki. Once again, masterworking, we want to try to go for the chance for core skills to hit twice. I finally have a decent amount of gold and also have decent amount of materials to be able to rework this. So I will be reattempting to masterwork this guy a little bit later. When we look at our runes, we've got Pock and K. The Earthen Bulwark is just too good for us not to take. Taking a look at our boots, we are using the duelist aspect where we're going to be taking dexterity, maximum life, and armor as well, with barrier generation and movement speed being tempered on. And then masterworking, we want to try to go for the maximum life for masterwork for all three. Taking a look at our pants, we've got the interdiction aspect, which has got max life, armor, and basic skills on here with GAs on maximum life. If you can get GA on armor as well, that would be great. But at the very minimum, try to go for GA on maximum life. We've tempered on barrier generation and maximum resolve stacks, where as usual, we want to try to go for all three masterwork onto maximum resolve stacks and increase this as much as possible. And then moving on to our gloves, we've got the Fell Soothsayer aspect on here, helping us out with making our enemies vulnerable, and then also making sure that we're applying that shatter effect to our enemies as well. When we look at our stats, we've got dexterity, attack speed, and once again, we are using the lucky hit chance to restore primary resource as we are not using the Ring of Midnight Sun. So this is going to be super helpful to maintain that vigor. And then we will temper on Mystic Circle potency and Vortex size, where our masterworking should be primarily focused on attack speed. For chest armor, we've got Shroud of False Death. We want to masterwork maximum life with this guy as much as possible. Getting all stats or resource generation is fine, but maximum life is what's going to help us out the most. Taking a look at our helm, we are using the apprehension aspect with this guy. We've got dex, max life, and maximum resource for our stats with a GA on maximum life, and then tempering on barrier generation and maximum resolve stacks, where our masterworking should all primarily go towards the maximum resolve stacks if possible. We're using the Tam and Zal runes on this guy. Again, really helpful with the additional maximum life we're getting with this, and that's what's helping us stay a little bit tanky. This build is hitting very frequently, which means our runes are pretty much always activated. And then looking at our amulet, we've got Banished Lord's Talisman. The overpower damage is incredible, so we definitely want to make sure we keep this guy on with our masterworking going towards our attack speed. If your attack speed is over 100 and don't find the need for this, you are also able to masterwork your maximum life as well, as that will be helpful. For our rings, we've got the unrelenting aspect, and this is what's really allowing us to get a maximum amount of hits as quickly as possible. Once you've got the third consecutive hit, this will also hit for an additional 10 times for its base damage of up to 45%. So this doesn't sound like it does a lot, but an additional 10 hits is really significantly going to help. This also makes it a little bit faster, and this is what allows us to do a little bit more speed farming with this, as once this is triggered, in most scenarios you can just move on to the next group and start pulling the next enemies so that you can keep moving. So really good aspect to have, and really good with our damage output. For our stats, we're taking Dex, maximum life, and attack speed, where we are going to want to masterwork our maximum life, and then we're tempering on resource cost reduction and Mystic Circle potency. And then to finish it up with our equipment, we've got the Plains Power aspect for this guy. We are taking Dex, max life, and attack speed here as well. We do need that resource generation. We also need Mystic Circle potency for our tempers. And then masterworking, similarly to the previous ring, we want to try to go for maximum life. Taking a look at our gems, we've got diamonds in our amulet and rings as per usual, and then we are using amethyst for our armor and pants. If you're finding that your barrier generation is higher and you don't necessarily need the amethyst, you can also replace it with dexterity. That'll be super helpful, so you can throw on those emeralds. And then taking a look at our skill tree. So as per usual, we will be starting with our basic skills, where we're going to take 1 point into Thrash, and we'll move that on up to Enhanced Thrash. And the purpose of that is just so that we can unlock the next portion of our skill tree. We will not be using these basic skills. So speaking of the next portion of the skill tree, looking at our core skills, this is a Crushing Hands build. So we will be taking 5 points into Crushing Hand, moving it up to Enhanced Crushing Hand, and then finishing it up with Rampant Crushing Hand. We do have a lot of resolve with this build, so this is going to significantly stack that additional damage for us. We also will be taking 1 point into Vigorous and moving it on up to Balanced Exertion for 3 points. And then finally, we'll finish it up with the core skills with Follow Through for 3 points here as well. Jumping on down to our focus skills, as I mentioned, we are going to want to pull our enemies in, and because this is a short range skill, we do want to take Vortex, take it up to Enhanced Vortex, and finish that up with Measured Vortex. We also will be taking 1 point into Mirage and 3 points into Unrestrained Power. And then we also are taking Ravager down to Enhanced Ravager, and then finishing it up with Measured Ravager. On the left-hand side of the focus skills, we've got 1 point into Focal Point, and then we'll wrap it up with 3 points into Apex. And then moving on down to our defensive skills, we've got 1 point into Endurance, and as per usual, 3 points into Perseverance. We will be taking 3 points into Armored Hide, 1 point on Enhanced Armored Hide, and then finishing it up with Reinforced Armored Hide. And then lastly, for the defensive skills, we are going to be taking 1 point into Scourge, taking that down to Enhanced Scourge, and then finishing it up with Adaptable Scourge. And then making our way down to our potency skills, we've got 3 points into Resilient, and then of course 3 points into Dominant. We also will be taking 3 points into Potent, and then 3 points into Furnace. For our ultimate skills, surprise here, we've got 3 points into Resolution, 3 points into Spiritual Attunement, and then 3 points into Supremacy. We wrap it up with 5 points into the Hunter, taking it down to Harmonious Hunter, and then Exalted Hunter for the ultimate skills. And then lastly, for our key passives, we are taking Prodigy's Tempo. With that said, let's take a look at the Paragon board. For the Paragon board, we have made a couple of changes since our previous Crushing Hands build. We are going to be starting off with the Spirit Glyph, where we're getting a significant amount of critical strike damage. Currently, I'm getting 422. I have added some additional dexterity nodes around the Spirit Glyph. if you do not have as many Paragon points as I do, so if you're below level 268, you don't have to add these additional ones on the left. You can circle back to this once you've completed your Paragon board. However, if you have the opportunity to, or if you're at the same level or higher than I am, then definitely want to make sure we're taking these and basically the rest of the dexterity nodes that are going to be on this board so that we can maximize on our critical strike damage. Jumping into our second board, we are taking Visca's Shield, pairing it up with the Ritual Glyph. We are using Mystic Circle with this build, so this is going to be crucial. And then we'll make our way up to our third board, which is going to be Revealing. And for this guy, we will be pairing this up with Colossal. We definitely can add some additional strength around this glyph so that we can increase the damage output from gorilla skills. This will be helpful, but for now I've just put in 25 so that we can activate the glyph. I have also taken the Artifice node with this, which does contribute towards a big portion of our vulnerable damage. And then I have also taken the Venom Weaver glyph with it as well, which is giving us 70% damage to our crowd controlled enemies. Moving on over to our fourth board, we've got the Sapping board, and we're pairing this one up with the Hubris glyph. Once again, the maximum resource from this is great and extremely helpful with the Rod of Kepaliki, so we definitely want to take this here. We will be making our way over to the fifth board, where we're going to finish this one up with the Convergence node and pairing up the Fitness glyph along with that. So between the Spirit glyph and the Fitness glyph, we are getting a significant amount of critical strike damage with this build overall. Once you have completed all of your boards, like I mentioned, you are able to add additional dexterity into both the Fitness glyph and also the Spirit glyph, so that way we can get additional critical strike damage. And then if you've done both of those things already, then you can make your way back up to the Revealing board so that you can add additional strength around this guy to increase the overall damage of our gorilla skills. With that being said, let's take a look at our Spirit Hall. So for the Spirit Hall, we are using Jaguar for the primary, and we are using Jaguar for the secondary as well. The Crushing Hands skill is considered a Jaguar skill as well, so we are benefiting from any type of Jaguar power-ups here. And then lastly, looking at our mercenaries, as usual, we are taking Rahir. We're going to take the Shield Charge skill and move on down to Rahir's Guard. We'll then take the Provoke skill, where we'll wrap it up with Mocking Lure to take advantage of that 15% times additional damage. And then for the Reinforcement, we are taking Varyana, who's going to be using Bloodthirst as usual to take advantage of that attack speed bonus. And then that's going to be triggering whenever the player casts a skill. With that being said, that is all I have for today. I hope you guys enjoyed this build. If you did, please don't forget to like, subscribe, and comment below. I will also be posting another build by either later this week or early next week. If you are looking for that specific pit pushing build, again, this is really good for all endgame content and can handle doing pit runs as well. However, the build that I plan to put out next is what's going to help you get into those pit tiers 150 if you're looking for that pit pushing build. So with that said, thank you guys for watching. Until next time, Wanderers.